5 questions that I want both of you to answer. Maybe Mark, you can give your answer first, and then Han, you can give your answer. I don't want any politician answers. I just want a yes or a no. Those are your 2 options. Yes or no, that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. First one, should the man always pay for the date?
No.
Absolutely.
Can you be friends with your ex?
Yes.
No.
Who should make the first move?
Oh, definitely the guy.
Guy, yes, thanks. Yes, Guy.
Talking about marriage on the first date?
No.
Yes. But we couldn't date.
Opposites attract.
What Bible are you reading again?
And this one you're allowed more than a yes or no answer. What's your biggest dating ick? Go on, Han, you can give him some time.
Swearing. Hate it.
Nice.
Think it's gross.
Too much emotion.
Nice. I like it. All right, cool. So you can decide who you want to
I'm
listen
a
to.
counsellor too. I don't know if that helps or not. But
Nice. So I'm going to direct each question to a specific person, but if you feel inclined to add more...
Or disagree.
Then is that why you put me in the middle, to just mitigate any, too much physical emotion? All right, first question. So again, these are all questions that you guys have sent in. Thank you for all your submissions. They were all sent in anonymously?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're not going to out who gave them. But with the number of questions that were sent in, there's not a chance for us to answer every single one. So we will let you know how we'll be answering some of the others after we answer these lot. So first question, mostly for Han. As a single person, whether we end up getting married or not, what are some specific, give me 3, specific things we can do to make the most of this season?
I'll give 3 and Mark can chuck in 3 as well.
Yeah, there you go.
Or 1 or 2. Okay, number 1 is join a life group and attend it religiously every week, so that you can build friendships. Number 2, I would say, is dedicate a year of your life to Bible college. If you're a Christian, you're in it until you die and beyond. So whether you just finished studying or you're in a career, I reckon if you give a year of your life to Bible college, it's not going to go to waste. So do that. And then number 3 is get a mentor that's way older than you. So I'm not talking about me be your mentor, get Mark or someone like that. Someone who's significantly older than you who can speak into your life. Can we just get a bit more house lights, please? Because I just want to see if Amori's falling asleep or not.
I can't even see her. Where is she?
She's on the floor asleep.
Yeah, Mark, you got any?
Oh, yeah, I'll add a couple. One is, I'd say, get to know yourself. And so, get to know a little bit more, and recognize, who you are, what you like, what needs you have, and what values you have. Because obviously, the more you know yourself, the more you're actually going to know what you want and what you fit with in a partner. I think secondly is have a lot of fun and have a lot of adventure before you get married. It continues in marriage, but I'm always whatever's happening before marriage in terms of patterns of our life, they're probably going to continue in some way after we get married. And so I'm just sort of man, look, if you're having fun and being adventurous and developing yourself and having interests, that's probably going to continue on into your marriage. And so I think making the most of this season is living that full life and trying to live as well as you possibly can with a level of contentment before you get into marriage. Because obviously, if we don't have that level of contentment in ourselves, someone else isn't going to fix that for you when you get married. And so it's not that we're all put together, but there is a general pattern of I'm fairly content with who I am and where I'm going.
Nice, thanks. Second question. If we can hear from Han first. How do we keep older single people from getting lost in our community?
great question, and I reckon such an important thing for every person, but I'll say Christian because we're at church, every Christian to really take on board. I don't know what the quick fix is, but I reckon for all of us, we needed, like, there's a time and place for like married people things and couple things, but I reckon, this is just my opinion, so I don't know, whatever. I reckon we just need to like get away from the thinking of like those categories, and it's just like we're a church family, we're all friends. Things don't always have to be like, oh yeah, couples games night or like whatever. I just think like we're all friends, so that's it. That's the best I got.
Nice.
Mark's older and wiser. Maybe he's got something better.
How do we keep single people from getting lost in our community? Yeah, no, I just think they're the same, you know, like I think I think in two parts, like I think we both have to take initiative in this. So I think for us as a community, realizing that we're very diverse and there's all sorts of people and relationships and things and families, and obviously singles being a part of that. And so just going, hey, for singles, how do we take initiative in including them and creating opportunities for them to be a part of our community. But I think if we're single and older, it's kind of the same thing. There's still some responsibility for the singles who are older to sort of go, hey, what opportunities are there out there in our community that I can also take a part in? And if they're not there, like maybe we can together play a part in developing and creating some of those spaces for more connectedness. So I think it goes on both parts. It's church's responsibility to shape culture as well as the individuals.
Nice. True. All right, a question, if we can hear from Mark first. How do we have a healthy relationship with our sexuality when we're single? And how do we do that when we're married?
I'm going to just speak about three things for this. And I'm going to keep it pretty simple after I do that, which is like, I just think when you're married, you do it together as a couple. But I'm going to give three things. So the first
do what?
That's right. So the first thing, to have a healthy relationship with sexuality, I think the first thing is to honor our sexuality, and that is like, you know, when we come to the gospel of the Bible, it starts with God created everything good, right? You know, and so our bodies and who we are, our humanness is created like we're sexual beings, and so like our bodies are created to experience that. Even as singles, right? You know, from young age, like very young age, like bodies react and respond to environment and to what's going on inside of them in sexual ways. And so I think there's a way of going, hey, we've been created like this, and I actually don't need to demonize it. Like it's actually something really good about me that God's put there. And in one sense, right, you know, is to kind of honor that and go, yeah, like that's something God has given us to experience life. And whether that's through passion or arousal or attraction or recognizing beauty or whatever it might be, even the different chemicals in our brains like serotonin and oxytocin and things like that, like they're meant to be there to help us connect with each other. Whether that's in sexual relationships or through other kind of experiences and activities that we do in life. And so I think firstly we need to honor it. I think the Bible does that. You read the Song of Songs. I wanted to do that. It might take a bit too much time. But if you read chapter 5 and chapter 7, there's some really like very detailed experiences of both a man and a woman celebrating each other's bodies and what it means to be sexual. I think another passage in Proverbs 5, it says this, "May your fountain be blessed. May you rejoice in the wife of your youth, a loving doe, a graceful deer. May her breasts satisfy you always. May you ever be captivated by her." And so like, there's actually a lot that the Bible has to say about us celebrating sexualness. And I think that is a really good thing. That's kind of one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum, obviously, is that we live in this world that has kind of been distorted as well. And so, you know, not only does the Apostle Paul celebrate marriage and sexualness through various verses, but he goes down the other extreme too, and he kind of goes, look, like our sexualness has also been distorted in some ways. And so he obviously at times speaks about managing and nurturing and taking control of our bodies, so we're not just controlled by our sexual experience, that we're actually managers of our body, and we're managers of our body because like if we do end up getting married, our body is actually in one sense our spouses. let alone it's God's, because Paul also speaks about our bodies being temples of the Holy Spirit. So we're meant to honor our bodies in particular ways for ourselves as well as for other people and for God. And so he often will say, hey, flee sexual immorality, or in Matthew 5, Jesus talks about like if we sin sexually with one part of our body, like our hand, we're to cut it off, right? So in one sense, the Bible speaks about celebrating sexualness. In the other, it's like, hey, just be very careful with this as well, because there are boundaries around it. It can be distorted. And so how do you have a healthy relationship with your sexuality? First, honor it. Second is know what the boundaries are. Maybe the boundaries too would be talking about terms of feeding our sexualities and nurturing it. There's really good ways to actually like honor and feed into our sexuality and our sexualness in healthy ways. And there's obviously ways that we can feed into it that are going to make it even worse. So for instance, like if you're on, if you're doom scrolling on Facebook, or you're watching porn or B-rated porn on Netflix, or you're looking at magazines that you shouldn't be, or you're trying to, those are all feeding appetite. And so I think, again, like we have this responsibility to be nurturing and feeding into our sexualness and our arousal in healthy, God-boundaried ways, if that kind of makes sense. Third thing is I just say have healthy outlets. Like I mentioned before, there's a lot of chemicals that are going on in our bodies, oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine, and things like that, which obviously there's a really special place within sexual relationships to experience those things, but they're not the only places we experience them. And so like we can actually get involved in a whole lot of activities when we're single that give us experiences of those sorts of chemicals in our bodies that can actually like almost take the edge off our appetites in other areas, So if you need to feel powerful or connected or anything like that, you don't actually have to meet that just through sexual activity. You can do that through a whole lot of other ways as well. So if you have those healthy outlets, it's actually going to make our own sexualness probably healthier as well.
Mark, let's do a counselling session right now. How do I know like what I need? Like you said, like there's healthy outlets for these things, and it's like if you're needing, I forget the words you used, but it's like if you need connection or power or like whatever, how do I know that like that's what I'm missing in my life and I'm finding it in porn or finding it in sexual expression when I should be channeling it into something healthy? Like how can I diagnose that in myself?
That's right.
I'm not a counsellor and I'm not self-aware.
That's part of the journey of becoming self-aware, I think, and we're all on that journey. So, for instance, like we obviously all, a lot of people get caught in patterns, and that's the same with the triggers that we have that kind of trigger the different needs that we might feel. And so, for instance, like if we're having patterns of loneliness or patterns of disempowerment. So, for instance, if you go to work and your boss shames you or tells you off and is critical, what happens in our brain is that we actually start looking for the opposite kind of experience of that. And so often in our culture, let alone all the cultures, we often find a lot of that through our sexual experiences. And so we'll look to cope in those particular ways. So if we feel disempowered in a relationship of some type, we will then try to control that by going to places we know that will get control. And obviously there's things like porn and things like that that are very like, we get to have all the control that we need in that, so it's a very safe place to be. Now, as I become self-aware, I might be able to go back and go, hey, what happened to me that day? What was my trigger? Like, was I lonely? Did I get disempowered? Did I feel shame in some way? And then there's other healthy ways of actually trying to meet part of that. So if I'm feeling lonely, if I haven't seen my friends in a while, or I've experienced them as saying, hey, I don't want to spend time with you, well, then I might go to a different friend and go, hey, look, like I've been feeling lonely today. Can we talk about it? Right, or that's the same in marriage, right? Like sometimes we feel lonely in marriage. And so, if we have a good conversation with our spouse, we can go, hey, look, like when this happened, it actually made me feel quite lonely. Can we talk about it? And then the talking about it actually brings part of that connection back. It doesn't fix everything, but it definitely helps a lot.
Right, so you're suggesting that we need to get counselling, seek professional help to be more self-aware, Is this a self-promo? Yes.
No. I'm saying that there's lots of great opportunities to develop ourselves. And again, like I just think like, pre-marriage especially, let alone in marriage, the more that we get to understand about ourselves, the more we develop ourselves, probably the more opportunity there is for health as we go along in life. So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Older, wiser. You basically that was my whole 40-minute sermon last week, and you did it in 7 minutes, so just have him next week.
Nice.
Yeah,
Right.
I got nothing to add to that.
Yeah, anything to add? No? Okay. All right, question for you to answer first time. How do we know if we're ready to date? And then how do we know if we're ready for marriage?
Yeah, okay, cool. This is how you know if you're ready to date. And I'm going to step on some toes right now. Number one, in my opinion, you've got to be done with high school. At the very least, okay? But it goes back to the purpose of dating. For me, it goes back to the purpose of dating. And the purpose of dating is to see, is this person a suitable marriage partner? That's what dating is for. And so if that is the purpose of dating, is this person a suitable marriage partner, then that's going to shape some of the criterias that you're looking for in terms of when am I ready to date. So I think there are some things that, and I'm speaking as a Christian, to Christians. If you're not a Christian, then just ignore everything we say tonight. Some things for healthy Christians, and I'm a very simple man, so I'm just going to kind of put it simply, and then Mark's a very deep man, so he'll be able to give a way better answer. I reckon number one, if you are more or less solid in your faith. So if you're going through some dark time of doubt or something, that doesn't mean you're evil or anything. It just means that's not a time to date. So you got your theology more or less sorted. You got your identity and self-esteem more or less sorted. And then Mark kind of alluded to that before about you got to know who you are, know what it means for you to be in Christ, and get your identity from that, so that you're not dating this guy or girl and losing yourself and finding your identity in that person. So know your base solid theologically, more or less, solid self-esteem. Is that the right word? Do you think? More or less. And if you're faithfully involved and known in your church community, I think that's a big one. So I don't mean just I go to church, but you go to church, you're involved in church, people know who you are, you know people. I think when you got those kind of things down, then okay, maybe that starts to say, okay, I think maybe you're in a season where you're ready to date. And I think obviously practically or chronologically, if the purpose of dating is what? What's the purpose of dating? Yeah, to see if they're a suitable marriage partner. Then you got to think okay, am I wanting to get married in the next 1 or 2, 3 years? If you're not wanting to do that, then you're not ready to date. Because why would you, if you don't want to get married, why? What's the purpose? Yeah, what's the purpose? It comes back to the purpose. So I think if those things are kind of there, you're ready to you want to get married in the next few years, you're solidly involved in your church, you know who you are in Christ, you know you're pretty more or less sure of your faith, then and then you hit it off with someone, I'd be yeah, go for it, date. And then it's how do I know if I'm ready for marriage? I would say, and I'm going to be controversial, and you can tell me off, Mark. Dare I say, if you're ready to date, then I'm going to say you're ready to get married. That's not to bring down the...
First date's the wedding.
That's not to say date anyone and marry anyone straight away. I'm bringing up the standard of dating to marriage. When I courted my wife, who wasn't my wife at that point, when I went to her parents, I said, hey, I would like to date and marry your daughter. So you giving me the green light to do that or not? you know? So I think the two go in hand. Now, I think there are some, controversial, so Mark will rubbish everything I just said in his response. But I think if those things are kind of down, and those are all taken seriously, then there are some like practical considerations, like do I have money? Do I have a driver's license? Do I have like a place for us to live? And those kind of things. And those are things that held me back from getting married. I was dating my girlfriend, for two different people, my wife, my girlfriend. No, one person. I dated my girlfriend for 3 years, and we were both solid, mature Christians, adults, blah, blah, blah. 3 years was way too long. And my excuses that I put up were like, I need to have more money, I need to have secure a house, and blah, blah, blah. And those are all legitimate reasons, right?
Except when you're in ministry, you're never going to have those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no.
Have you reached there? Should you be married?
Yeah. But what I'm saying is those things held me back from getting married. But once I got married, I was like, actually, what those barriers came from was a distrust of God. I actually didn't trust that God would be able to provide all those things. And so if you are connected into a church community, listen to this. If you're connected into a church community, in theory, you should never go without. Like, if you have a need, you should have brothers and sisters sitting next to you who will say, bro, you don't have blankets for your house? I'm going to go buy you some. Or, bro, you've been looking at those new Adidas boots? I'll buy it for you. You know, I think those are important considerations, but they shouldn't hold someone back from getting married. So I think, overall, I think dating is, serious. So if you're ready to date, in theory, you should be ready to get married. And there are relational things you need to learn about people, but in terms of for yourself, I think if you're ready to date, it means that you're ready to get married. Mark, do you want to discount everything I just said?
No, I agree with everything Han said. But just a little bit different maybe in the expression of those same things. So probably a little bit different with, how should I start this? Dating has only probably been, in terms of how we know it, has probably only been around just over 100 years. So when you think in terms of human history, the last 10, 20, 30, 50, 80 million years or whatever it might be, dating is actually quite a novel kind of concept and way of doing life. And that doesn't mean that as Christians...
And even in the Western world.
In the Western world, right, And all I'm saying is that it's not bad or wrong. And as Christians, we can engage our culture, but we do that through the filter and the lens of being Christian and Scripture. And so if we're going to date, we've just got to treat it through the different truths and directions that Christ and Paul and the apostles have given us through God's word. And so I'm probably get into this in a little bit, so I'd just say, look, I'm probably not quite where Han is, in terms of dating at 18 or 20 or whatever it might be. I'm it's okay to engage culture, but you just want to be very careful in terms of how we go about working that out through the way that we live. In terms of when we're married, I'd probably have a little bit more of a gap, in terms of if you're ready to date, then you're ready to get married. I'd be maybe for some people that might be true. I think for other people, again, it's knowing yourself, right? And so I think there's another sense of it is, how do you know when you're ready to get married? Well, you might be ready when you're ready to date, but sometimes it can take a little bit longer to kind of assess whether your partner is as well and whether you're that fit. And so I think getting to know who your partner is, what they're like around other people, what they're like with their faith, what they're like in their churches, and what they're like in life, and getting to kind of understand and know that, because obviously if you're going to get married, you're going to hopefully commit your life to this person. That's a long time, right? You're trusting a lot of your life with this person. So I'm man, you want to make pretty sure that you're choosing well, yeah? And so this isn't an overnight kind of decision or anything else. And so I'm just look, again, when you're dating, when you're looking to date, when you're engaged, just live it all through the lens of Scripture, right? But again, you're you're going to be trusting this person with your life for a long time. So you just want to be very thoughtful about who you're choosing to spend your life with. Yeah? And 50% of marriages, 50% of marriages whether you're Christian or not, are going to end in divorce, most probably. And that doesn't even speak about the other 50% in terms of like, how do you go about rating whether they're healthy, kind of like happy marriages or not? Like just because they're still together. So like the percentage of marriages that are actually quite healthy, it can be quite, not small, but like it's smaller. And so I'm just sort of like, again, like you want to choose really, really well in terms of who you're going to be doing life with. So that's all I'd say to it. Like, yeah.
Thanks. Nice. All right. Last question before we just have a quick break. Mark, if we are stuck in sexual sin, should we step back from ministry?
Is this a yes or no question?
No, I want a politician answer.
Okay, well, these are my thoughts around it. Okay, so my answer is going to be, it really depends. The reality is that we're all sinful, and there's actually no area of any of our lives that isn't touched or distorted or impacted by sin in some sort of way. And so again, I just say, be self-aware, learn about yourself in these areas, try and have some awareness of where that sin is in your sexual self and like how that's impacting you. And I'll just say 3 things about this. So it depends. Firstly, are you stuck in your sexual sin? You're aware of it, and are you doing something about it or not? Okay, so it really depends. Like if you're aware of it and are you doing something about it or not? Like if you're aware of it and you're not doing anything about it, then I'd say, yeah, it's like a good chance that you probably should step back from ministry. Like go have a chat to one of your leaders or a mentor or someone you trust about that. But I'd say, yes, if you're not wrestling with it, then probably most certainly. Second, are you stuck in it and putting effort into it and trying to get healthy, trying to glorify God, trying to care for yourself and trying to care for other people through that, right? You know, and again, like if you're stuck in it in some sort of way, but you're really trying to put effort into it to develop as a person, to glorify God, I'd say it depends. The third would be the level of harm and impact. I think thinking about the level of harm and impact to yourself, like what's it doing to yourself and the way that you're doing life, what's the level of harm and impact to other people, like how's it impacting those that you're in relationship with, how's it impacting your relationship with God. I think also if you're in ministry, you're also a leader in some sort of way, most probably, and so you're linked a step above, with church and how church is seen and how Christians are seen. And so we just want to be really careful that, like, you know, like we're caring for people, we're portraying church, and we would just want to do that in a really good way because the church is representative of Christ and the gospel. And so again, like, you know, just want to be really aware of that. Best way to think about it is like our sexual behavior is often an indicator of how we're doing underneath, like more deeply. Like sex and sexual things can be sin, but often sin is how we're coping with our brokenness and our pain underneath. And so I think like, you know, like, are you aware of the sexual sin? Are you aware of what's going on underneath? And my question would be, if it's indicating that something's going on underneath, I'd probably ask you, well, what care do you need? And what love do you need? What support do you need through this? And maybe seeing it as a time, if you do step back, not as a punishment, but as a, hey, look, like, we're all human. We also all need care and support. And we all need seasons where we do need to take a step back and kind of get some restoration for ourselves. All of us need that. And so, you know, I'd just say, look, yeah, like maybe it could be a time to step back for a while, but as a way of caring for you and feeding into you and investing into you. So that's kind of how I'd answer it.
Yeah, I think that last bit is so key. Because like if you read, like for example, in Matthew 18, just talking about how Christians are to respond to each other when they're stuck in sin, passages in like 1 Corinthians and Galatians, it just talks about how the goal is always restoration. It's never like, oh, you're stuck in sexual sin, get out of here, we hate you. It's like, if you're stepping back from ministry because of it, it's like, yeah, it's not a punishment. It's a, hey, we want you to be well. And so we want to take time to make sure you're well and so that you're being fed and input in your life rather than like, what, you crossed the line, get out of here. But I think, yeah, like, I think that's a fantastic answer. Like, I wonder if whoever asked that question is just wondering, like, because I am stuck in sexual sin, Does that mean, like black and white, does that mean I have to stop my ministry? And I guess what we're saying is like, no, it's not necessarily. It's not automatically sexual sin, stop serving in church. It's not like that. It's so varied, like so many different levels. But yeah, whoever you are, and I'm sure it's more than just one person, we would say we're not here to like hunt you down and be like, oh, show me your search history. Like it's nothing like that. It's like if there are struggles, sexual or otherwise, it's like, man, we want to help you. We want to do the best we can to care for you, and not just mean like Mark and I want to help you, but like we, the church, people around you, everyone wants to help each other. So.
And the reality is like as we look out here and you look up here, like we're all probably struggling in some way, you know. So like
we are.
If we were a fly on the wall, we would all know that you're struggling in some way. You'd probably know we're struggling in some way. But like, are we doing that well? And are we trying to honor our lives to God and to being representative of who He is? And as well, like if we're healthy, we're more likely to relate with others in healthy ways, right? You know. So, yep.
Yeah. I think as well, like, because we live in a very secular society where religion is very much a no talking zone, you know, like we don't want to talk about religion, but they're very happy and open about talking about sex. Whereas in church, we're happy talking about religion, but yeah, often we don't have those conversations. And in the same way that we want to support each other in our prayer life, in our family life, our faith life, those are, you know, we want to support each other to have God glorifying habits. Anyway, in saying that, we're just going to stop for a quick break. We've got 5 more questions after. What if you and your boyfriend or girlfriend go to separate life groups or churches? Should we try go to the same one? And if so, when should that happen?
Okay. Call me a jerk.
Jerk.
Bro, you were so quick to say it.
Daniel, was that you? Oh, all right.
Oh, was it Neil? Okay. Sorry, Stevie, I thought it was you. Well, no, because you're right there, and you have a vendetta against me. So, hey, so call me a jerk, but I'm not trying to like, what's the word? Like brush off the question. But I don't think it matters all that much, and let me explain why. I don't think it matters all that much whether you and your boyfriend, girlfriend go to the same life group or church while you're dating, because there are pros and cons to both. Okay? So let's say you go to the same life group or whatever. The pros will be like, yeah, okay, sweet, you have the same schedule. So Monday nights, you're both at life group. You can get KFC beforehand, whatever. Like, you know, you're synchronized in that way. You're also like on the same mission, learning the same things, you know, same teaching, same putting into practice. Like, you know, you're synchronized in that way. So that's a good thing. And you get to spend time together, and you get to see what the other person is like at life group or church. Like, are they just like reserved and don't want to participate? Do they try to arrive as late as possible and leave as soon as, you know what I mean? Or are they knowing? Do they engage? Like all these kind of things, healthy things that you want to know. But the cons of being in the same life group or church could be like, if you break up, could get a little bit awkward. I guess another con is like if you like, it's hard for you to be intimately open with your life group about your dating relationship if they're sitting in the room, you know, like, hey, do you have any prayer requests? Yeah, I'm thinking about breaking up with my boyfriend. What should I do? And he's like,
Han's been a real jerk this week. I need prayer.
Yeah, it's actually true. So there are pros and cons, and that's why I say like it doesn't matter all that much, because yeah, you can do well, you can do wrong in both scenarios. So this is what I would say. I would say I would echo. Yeah, okay, I'll bring some Bible into it too. Pastor should do that. So in 1 Corinthians 7, Paul says to the Corinthian church, and we've spoken about this over a couple of weeks, is like different scenarios, but I think the principle applies where he says like, hey, just remain in whatever situation you were in. Like if you're single, like don't freak out, stay single. If you're married, don't try to get a divorce or whatever. It's kind of that kind of principle, I reckon. Am I using that passage out of context? Is that bad? Okay, sweet. Pastor's validation, thank you. So I think like you can just like, if you're in the same life group, great. You don't need to be like, oh, hey, Bob, I think we need to set boundaries around this and you need to go find another life group. You don't need to do that. If you're in different ones, you don't need to be like, stuff you, life group, I'm going to go join my boyfriends. You don't need to do that. Just chill. But, however, if you do go to separate churches, if that is the scenario, or different life groups, can I say this? Yes, I will say this. Make a very be very sure to make sure you connect about each other's churches. So like maybe Sunday lunch, you guys get together and talk about what happened at church or what you learned at church. And this is what can happen even in married relationships. Is like church life can just become this thing that couples just go to, tick the box, and then go home and then go about their day, right? So if that's, and then church life just becomes not even a thing. It's just a thing that it takes an hour of your time. So if we're prone to do that in even like couples that go to the same church, if you guys go to separate churches, you need to fight against making that happen. Like, oh yeah, he goes to his church on Sunday, I go to my church on Sunday, and it's just like disconnected from your relationship. You just know, oh yeah, like he goes to his church, that's his thing. So like you need to make sure you guys connect over, so whoever asked this question, make sure you connect over like what's happening at your church and like talk about it so that you know that like, yeah, this thing called church, it's an actual part of our relationship and our life. And then on top of that, I would say, I don't know what the formula is, and I'm just going to make one up now. Once a month, like go to church together so that, again, you can, like, dating and marriage, as you guys have heard, in my opinion, is a serious thing. And so you need to know the person that you're marrying is, like, serious about how they interact in their faith community. Again, it's one of those things like, do they just want to skip church all the time, or do they just sneak in as late as possible and then just leave? Or do people actually know who they are? You know, he might be like, oh yeah, I go to Calvary Chapel, and then like you guys go to Calvary Chapel together, and literally no one knows him, and he just leaves his. You want to look out for those things. You want to know those things, because dating is for what purpose? Yeah, to see if they, yeah, thank you. Something about seeing if they're a suitable marriage partner. So I think for those reasons, it doesn't matter all that much, but you want to observe each other in those settings. And then as it pertains to like when should I change and go to the same one, I think when it happens organically. So you don't need to be like, right now I'm going to make this distinction and go to another group or whatever. Just do it organically. Like, oh, at the end of the year, this group is going to finish. So next year, I'll start going to life group with my boyfriend. Like just that happens organically. Or if you get married, then I think you should be in the same group. Right? I don't know. Maybe he's got some wisdom. Should married couples be in the same group? I reckon they should, but okay, there you go. Mark says so. Yeah, so I don't know if I cleared it up or... both are good when you're married. Be in the same group. Mark.
Only one thought, and it's a little bit of a tangent, kind of. I'd just say, have you guys got friends who are couples, and when they start dating, they kind of stop spending time with everyone? Have you guys had couples like that? And I'd just say, look, like, a little bit of that's natural. Like when we start to date, like obviously more of our time and energy and is going to go into the other person. But I just say, like, it's actually really healthy to have like support and connection outside a relationship. You don't want to become enmeshed where like you and your partner are kind of one and the same person. Like you do want to become one, but you obviously like also need like a healthy balance of external things. And so I just say, look, like if you're in different life groups, yeah, like probably for a time, like that's probably a really healthy and good thing, and you should probably keep it that way until until a time as you think is wise to kind of join that. But I'd say with the rest of life as well, like you want to be with someone who's kind of got at least a couple of kind of close friends. They've got some activities that are kind of outside the relationship and things like that. There'd just be some kind of thoughts around that. Yep.
Nice, thank you very much. All right, we move on to the next question. So, Mark, if you can answer this one first. What are the appropriate physical boundaries between a Christian couple while dating?
Well, when I thought of this question, first thing that came into my mind was, how would Han answer this? And so my answer is 3 feet. So there has to be 3 feet in between you and your partner at all times. Is that okay? No. No. Look, like I think, I think Chan and I kind of chatted about this one the other day, and I think we both had quite a similar feeling. And that is that, like, often culture and we ourselves kind of think, hey, how close can I get to sin? Or how close can I get to the line before I sin? And I think there's always that kind of, we come at it from that fear angle. And I just don't know that that's the most helpful way to kind of think about it. Like, it may be a better way to kind of think about it. A real simple way is to kind of go, oh, look, like, how can I, like, both kind of please and honor God with who I am? How can I kind of honor the person that I'm with, and then also honor myself through the way that I live, right?
And I know some of you are thinking like, oh, that's wishy-washy. Like, just tell me the line. Like, but honestly, I promise you, when you start thinking in that way, like, oh, how can I honor God and honor myself and this person, blah, blah, blah. When you start thinking like that, like, it's just better. Yeah. Like, it's so much better.
Yeah. And part of the reason I have a job and people pay me hundreds of dollars is because, like, they don't think that way, and so they come into marriage, like a lot of us come into marriage with a lot of sexual baggage or a lot of sexual history or pain that's actually affecting our sexual relationship with our spouse. And then we have to pay hundreds of dollars to go see a counselor or a therapist or whoever it might be to actually kind of start to work some of that stuff out. So it's actually a real good way to go, hey, look, like, how can I honor God? And actually by doing that, I'm going to be honoring myself, building health into me and health into my partner, right? And so that's kind of like the way I would frame it. A couple of passages. First, kind of Timothy 5 talks about treating each other as brothers and sisters. And so it's almost like when we come to physical contact, I'd just be like, look, like, almost, not quite the same, but like almost how I would treat my sister is probably how I'm going to treat my dating partner. Hebrews 4 says, hey, look, like, when it comes to, like, passion.
Wrestling?
Yeah, that's right. When it comes to, in public. Yeah. So when it comes to, like, passion and sensuality, we're actually to keep the marriage bed or the marriage relationship undefiled. And so there's an undefiled sense not only of physical contact, but of our passion and sensuality towards each other, right? So those are a couple of passages, again, that might frame how we kind of begin to look at this. So just 4 thoughts on top of that. How we treat each other physically, how we interact, should actually align and reflect the level of commitment that we have given to each other. Okay, so like, if I don't know you, I don't want you touching me because I don't trust you. I don't know you, pretty much. Maybe a hug. I don't know. But there's like a trust there, right, with my family, and maybe a little bit more with a dating partner. Maybe we can hold hands or hug or a peck here and there. But like, just being really careful around those sorts of things. Again, like how we interact kind of physically should align with our level of commitment and trust to that person. And I only say this because not only has God, I think, commanded that through Scripture, but also, again, like the amount of harm and the amount of damage that comes out through relationships around sexual contact and experience later on in marriage comes from how we've actually interacted and lived out that in our dating relationships. And so if you want to enter marriage, hopefully in a more healthy way, we want to be treating our dating relationships in that way. Another one is like when we break up, I would much rather have my partner say of me, even if we decided to stop dating, oh, look, like, me and Mark, we weren't a fit for each other, but I'm actually better off for knowing him and for having him actually like honor me and treat me and my body as a valuable thing that's that's meant to be respected, and me wanting the same from her, right? You know, so I think there's something there that, like, even if we weren't a fit for each other, I hope my partner might be able to go, yeah, like I feel kind of enriched as a person through that experience, even if we weren't meant for each other. Third one is, I think the way that we treat each other physically, sexually and all that sort of thing, should reflect or be reflective of what we're willing to do in front of other people in public. So if you're hiding it, you probably shouldn't be doing it. So, like, you know, maybe a bit too much PDA or whatever else, that's another conversation, but just kind of going, look, like, whatever in our dating relationships, we should be able to do with each other what we can do in front of other people in public, okay? Fourth one, just be very aware of what you're stirring up in yourself and in your partner. Obviously, like, the more contact we have, the more our body gets flooded with all sorts of things. We kind of lose our prefrontal cortex for a little while. And so I'm just kind of like, look, like, just be really aware of what you're kind of, like, fueling with inside yourself and your partner. And actually, like, you probably don't know what's going on in your partner's head, which is quite scary, right? You know, and so I'm just kind of like, look, like, you just want to be nurturing that and protecting that. And so there's a couple of questions that people have asked. How far is too far? And I think I've kind of answered that in a ways, like, we shouldn't defile the marriage bed. We should treat each other as siblings in a particular way when we're in our dating relationships. Should you talk with your boyfriend or girlfriend about your sexual expectations before you get engaged? I would say 100% yes. For one thing is that you want to test whether they can recognize your values and whether they're going to reinforce them. Because if they don't reinforce your values before marriage when it comes to your sexual boundaries, probably not going to do it when you get married. Okay, and so, like, that's going to, our boundaries help protect and actually feed into our own self-esteem and self-worth. And so, again, like, if they're crossing those boundaries and breaking them down, they're actually, like, tearing down a little bit of our own self-worth. Okay, and so I'm just kind of like, we want to be reinforcing that. So 100%, like, be talking about your sexual boundaries before you get married. Also, it kind of, like, sets up great communication, like patterns of communication. If you can talk about this stuff before you get married, probably likely that it's going to be a lot easier to talk about sex and your sexual experience when you get married. If you don't talk about it before you get married and you don't have those patterns of communication, it's going to be a lot harder to kind of start those up once you're in marriage and you're being sexual with each other, because there can be kind of a lot of shame around, like, body and how body responds and stuff like that. Last question, Christian friends sleep. So someone asked, I think, can Christian friends sleep together despite not being married? And my thoughts, no. Like, if you're friends and you're Christian, if you're Christian, you probably, and you're and you're not married, you shouldn't be having sex anyway. And so, should you be friends and sleeping together despite not being married? No, probably not. No.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely not. No, that's great. Like, I just reckon, the Bible's category for us is brother and sister, and so it's not like exactly like literal brother and sister. But it's an indicator of how we had to. So I think when it comes to physical touch, I think all that stuff that Mark said is so good. And I think of it in terms of, like, is this physical touch, like, is it bringing about affection or is it to bring about arousal? And I think there's a difference. I think we know, right? So, like, if we were celebrating something and you were like, yes, my team, Cincinnati FC, beat Inter Miami, yes. And then we went in for a high five. It's like, that's showing just affection, right? Like friendship. But if we were like, yes, Cincinnati FC beat Inter Miami, and then, I don't know, you're like rubbing the inside of my thigh, like, that's a completely different way of physical touch, right? One is clearly like affection as friends, and one is not. That's a weird way to celebrate a football result, eh? But you get my point. Like, I think we know when our physical touch is, like, affectionate as brother and sister, you know, to a certain extent, and what is trying to bring arousal. Like, I think we know. When in doubt, I go with the 3 Bs. It's like breasts, butt, and between the legs. Don't go there. Don't touch it.
All right, another question. If we can hear from Mark first. What if we want to try sexual stuff our spouse doesn't want to do?
Yeah, so if we want to try sexual stuff our spouse doesn't want to, I think it's a great opportunity to have a wonderful conversation and getting to know each other. Just because there's all sorts of reasons that may be the case. Yeah, and I think that's part of the exploration and the adventure of exploration is kind of finding out what's behind that. For some people, it may be a learning thing, right? Like maybe you enter marriage and you've not had a lot of sexual experience with people. And so, again, there's a real kind of like vulnerability that comes in with exposing ourselves and being with people. And so, learning kind of like about each other and taking that time. And we... each of us and our partners, we have not had the same life or history or anything else as well, and so the way and the speed at which we learn can be different. And so I just think there's a space there in terms of being with each other and journeying with each other and knowing that it's actually okay to learn. And so that may be part of it. Another part might be, what if your spouse doesn't want to try sexual stuff? Yeah, there could be another space where that may come from some sort of trauma or like sexual experience that they've had that's hurt them or pain. And so again, like there's an opportunity there maybe for there to be some healing or some restoration or some care that partner may need. And it may just be okay that for their life that they don't engage in that particular specific thing that you want based on the trauma that they've been through. And I'm not going to say that's easy. I don't know specifically what you're talking about or whoever asked this question, but just going, look, like there might be a space there where like that's just not an area that you go into. Another thing might be, like we've all fed into our own sexual experience, and that can also negatively shape what we desire, like our appetites and our arousal in marriage and around sex as well. And so if we've been feeding negatively into our own sexual experience, well, maybe we've had trauma as well, like that may be impacting things. I want to give specifics, but they don't kind of cross everything. So just sort of saying like maybe we have to look at ourselves too first maybe and go, hey, where's my desire coming from? Like what's behind that and like what's shaping that for me? Like what's making this a different desire than my spouse might have? But really at the end of the day, if your spouse says no, it's kind of no. Yeah, so, if you want to try something sexual, great to have that conversation. Hey, I want to try this, I want to try that. Sex is actually it can be like this really wonderful thing to explore and be adventurous and to learn. And so, lots of really good healthy resources. You don't have to go to Pornhub or anything else like that. You can actually, there's tons and tons, like thousands of resources around sexual experience that are appropriate and suitable for marriage that you can go to and like learn things. And so I just go, look, like you can go there and you can ask people, professional people like sex therapists, right? Like you can go and have conversations. And so I'm just, be feeding into yourself in healthy ways is all I'd say as much as possible. But yeah, no is no, I guess, at the end of the day.
Anything to add?
No.
That's a no. All right, last question, which we'll hear from Han first. Breaking up, when and how?
So, let me say this. Red flags, take them seriously, please. This is why we need friends in our lives who aren't thinking with their genitals in a relationship to give us clarity, okay? Take red flags seriously. And so I'll give you a couple of red flags that I think are break-upable flags. Not like, no one's perfect and we got to like talk this stuff through. Not that stuff, but I mean like these are break. Is there a word for it? I don't know. Break up if these red flags are there. If you're a Christian and your boyfriend, girlfriend is not, red flag. Break up. I know some of us might think, but what if God redeems the situation? Or they're coming to church with me and they're seeking. Look, we can't disobey God. You know, he says, do not be unequally yoked. We can't disobey God and in the hope that he graciously redeems the situation. Does that make sense? We can't just go outright disobey God hoping that he's going to provide the best. I'm not saying dating a Christian is an unbeliever is the same as murder, but I'm like, just think about the principle. If we apply that principle to like murder and go, oh, okay, God says don't murder people, but I'm going to go ahead and break this command. I'm going to break this rule of God in the hope that in his grace that he's going to redeem the situation. Like you would say, don't, right? So it's that same principle. God clearly says, Christian, we yoke ourselves to other Christians. So if they're not a Christian, that's a red flag. A second one, and then there's the obvious ones, like if they're beating you up or abusing you, like whatever, that's obvious. But the other one is like if they demand sexual things from you, like break up. Get rid of them. They're not ready to date. And the third one is like if they're not well involved and faithfully known in their church, break up. I'm not saying that person's evil or this is a moral thing or they're a terrible person or anything like that. Again, it just comes back to they are not ready to date if they're not plugged into their church. And so like, I think God, through his word, has given us a picture of what godly man, godly woman looks like, right? And so when we see those kind of things there, and you're keen for each other, then like, go for it, you know? We don't need to like get some real deep. We over spiritualize things, eh? And I think this is your pastor speaking, being unspiritual. I think we don't need to over spiritualize things and wait for some deep confirmation from God that this is the person I should date. Like God says, godly man is like this. Boom, 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 boom. Here are the things. And if you meet someone and he meets those things that the Bible says is a godly man, it's like cool. I don't need to pray too hard about this. Like to know that this is a person who is worth dating. Like if we're keen for each other and the godliness is there, then cool. And so that's like, look for that. And then if there are those major red flags, which hopefully you probably should know maybe beforehand, because I'm a big advocate of, again, controversial, but I'm a big advocate of only dating friends, so people that you know and you know like their character. Hopefully you should know these things about someone before you like try to start dating each other. But I think like take the red flags seriously, and when it comes time to break up, I'll say this as someone who has no experience in breaking up with anyone, but I know a thing or two about just general communication. And so when you break up with someone, Mark, you'll have better insight because you're quite the heartbreaker in your day. Hey.
And had my heart broken. Yep.
Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah. That's the way you spin it. Mark was quite the Casanova, apparently, back in the day.
That's when I had hair. Why are you laughing? Mate, that's real me. We actually did a talk over at another church in town, and they asked us a question like, what was something that you found really attractive about your partner? And my wife turned to me and she's like, oh, I love like a really clean shaved head, eh? She's like, that's kind of a turn on, so...
There you go.
My wife, it's great that she loves that, right? Mesa, why are you terrible?
Anyway, so I just think when it's time to break up, those red flags are there, you need to break up. Let me just give 2 pieces of advice from my experience with communication. Number 1 is be kind. So what's like a great rule in life? Don't be a jerk, right? So be kind. And number 2 is be clear. So like, I've never been through this because I didn't have a lot of girlfriends when I was young or when I'm old. Currently have no girlfriends and don't plan to. So like friends would like break up with their spouse, with their girlfriends, and it would just be left unclear, like, oh, I need to work on this, and then maybe we can get back together, or I just need a break, or like whatever, and it's just like unclear. And in communication and being married, like we know this, especially being married, is like communication breakdowns always happen. So if you need to break up with someone, like be clear. Like be honest, be kind, but be clear. Like, hey, I want to break up because here are my reasons, and yeah, don't be a jerk about it. But also, last thing is this. You don't need to wait till there's like a big red flag for you to break up with someone. Like, if they're lovely and you're lovely, but you're just not feeling it, like, you're allowed to break up. You're not married. Do you remember when we did that marriage series? Like, when you're not married, don't act like you're a married couple. Like, if you're dating, you're allowed to break up. And there doesn't need to be some deep spiritual reason behind it. You can just be like, nah, as long as you're honest and kind about it. Okay, I'll shut up. Mark, you close us off.
I think Han had some good stuff there. And I think, the first one is, biggest red flag, biggest no-no is like, don't get into a relationship with someone who's not a Christian if you're a Christian. 100%. Not only because it's what the Bible directs, and it does, I think it also fleshes out that we're meant to become one in sharing our life with our partner. And if you're a Christian and it's meant to impact every part of your life, how can you share that with someone who doesn't have that? Not very well. And there's going to be a part of you, and through experience in my own family, my own parents' relationship, and other people that I know, like, marriage is hard enough. Like it's a wonderful, awesome experience. It's also really hard. It's a really difficult thing. Why would you invite this massive difficulty into a marriage relationship of the biggest part of your life that's meant to impact everything, right? Why would you bring that into a relationship that's already going to take a lot of work? You're putting yourself on the back foot from the very beginning. And so I'm just like, man, you want to share this massive adventure and journey with someone in life. That's why we all part of why we couple up. And it's like, well, if you want to do that, you want to find someone who shares the major value of every part of your life. Right, so God commands it, but also you want to be one with them as much as possible. You can't do that if they're not Christian. Second red flag, just underneath Hans. Red flag, if you can't control your own body sexually or your partner can't, probably a red flag. If you can't control your body sexually before marriage, sex, again, a wonderful thing. That's really hard in marriage as well. And when it's not going well, we all look to cope in particular ways. It's just going, man, look, if you can't control your body before marriage and relating with someone, it's probably a bit of a flag, a pattern that's going to continue into your marriage. And so I'm like, man, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't come back together or work on it or whatever else, but at some point I'd be like, man, if you can't get to a point of controlling that and nurturing that and living that out in healthy ways, then or your partner can't, probably time to get out and develop that and grow that, or for your partner to grow up a bit as well. What was the last thing? When. Just like Han. I'd just be like, be clear, be real kind, but just be very clear about it. And when you break up, don't offer hope. I know that's it's a really hard thing to do, but just kind of be like, look, we don't know what's going to happen in 5 years or 10 years or whatever else. Sure, if God brings us back together, but actually, it's better just to be clear and go, look, at this time, it's we just have to end, as a dating couple. That sounds a little bit mean, but it's actually the kindest thing you can do in terms of getting closure. If you don't give them closure, you're probably just going to perpetuate a little bit of pain. So it's probably better just to go, look, I just don't see it kind of continuing, and it's probably better for us to end. There's probably other things I could say, but that's probably.
Awesome, thank you for those answers.